Is a bankruptcy nerd alert. The April numbers are in for bankruptcy filings. And so I am here as your superhero, Rebel Esquire, to reveal exactly what those numbers were and what that means year over year and where the trends are going. So the headline was that individual Chapter 7 filings were up 16% in April 2025 over April of 2024. So that is a pretty big jump for individual Chapter 7 filings. And but most Chapter 7 filings are individuals. A lot of corporations don't generally file Chapter 7. So this is strictly individual Chapter 7s was the 16% increase for Chapter 7. Now, total individual filings themselves between all chapters was a 10% increase. And what the difference is between the Chapter 7 filings, which had the 16% increase, is Chapter 13s were pretty even. There was a very slight increase of only like a few hundred case difference, actually less than 100 cases, between April 2024 and April of 2025. And so Chapter 13s were pretty even. It was the Chapter 7s that really bumped up the 10% increase. So overall, individual filings are up 10%. But that Chapter 7 number is really interesting because Chapter 7 is what probably 75% of cases are filed as a Chapter 7 for individuals if they can be filed as Chapter 7. And that usually is credit cards and unsecured debt and things like that. So what that number shows is that the debts that are being discharged in Chapter 7 are those debts we think of when we think of inflation, people not being able to keep up with their bills, interest rates going up on debt. Those are the types of debts that are being handled oftentimes in a Chapter 7. So an increase in Chapter 7 filings is usually going to be those types of, we've reached the end of our ability to make minimum payments on credit cards, and this is where we're at. Then let's talk real quick. I didn't put a slide in for this, but the overall total bankruptcy filing increase from April 2024 to April 2025 was 9%. Commercial filings were actually decreased slightly in April. However, subchapter fives were up about 4%. And so commercial filings slowed down a little bit in April, but we're seeing the individuals, which tracks. A lot of times commercial leads the indicators and then individuals follow because it's like a roller coaster. If you picture you're going up, 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 and then it kind of rolls down from there, kind of goes up and down. And commercial tends to lead as a leading indicator of before the individuals. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I had a bankruptcy surge, a video that I did on inquiries dramatically increasing for bankruptcy services. And so we're seeing a lot of that these days too, where people are starting to um, ask about bankruptcy. They're starting to, the calls are increasing. And so seeing those inquiries start turning into bankruptcies makes sense at this point. So overall, business and commercial filings were a little bit lower over last year, but individuals now are ramping up. If you are thinking about adding bankruptcy as a practice area because you want to be a bankruptcy nerd with the rest of us, remember to check out my site at lawyersuccessnetwork.com and like and subscribe for more content. I will talk to you all soon with the next bankruptcy nerd update.